Hi, my name is Adam Cuthriell. I am owner of Fishhound Expeditions and just want to say thank you guys for joining this virtual Fish Alaska seminar with everything the world has been facing. This is kind of sadly how things are going, but you got to roll with the punches. I just also want to thank Fish Alaska and Melissa Norris personally. This is an awesome experience. And to everyone viewing in, I just want to pre-apologize. We are filming this in our house, and my family and I have a 19-month-old toddler. She's awesome. We're trying to keep her entertained right now, but if you hear any random shriek noise, that's just our daughter there. So anyway, let's get to it. We're talking about float trips and the advantages of doing a float trip versus other style trips that you could do in Alaska. You know, a lot of people hear about lodges and flying out to a lodge, and lodges are great. They offer great creature comforts. They offer great fishing. So not to take anything away from those, but when you're out there on a lodge and you're flying out every day, as it does get rainy in Alaska, sometimes you may not be able to fly out. So that's an advantage to doing a float trip, is once you get out there, you are on the river. So you have way more time to be spent fishing. Another thing with the lodge is they're pretty kind of 9 to 5 because you got to be back for your awesome prepared meal. Whereas on a float trip, you're on your own time. You know, after we eat one of our amazing meals out on the river, if you want to go out and go fishing again, take a couple more casts, catch a couple more fish before turning into the rack for the night, you do have that ability. Same thing, if you're an early riser and you want to get up, grab your coffee and go fish, you can do that on a float trip, you know, because on a float trip, you are on the river, obviously, from start to end, so that affords a lot more time to be actually spent fishing as opposed to sitting in a hot tub at a fancy lodge. You know, float trips definitely aren't for everyone. You know, you are out in the Alaska wilderness and you are in nature. You know, you can do your best to make camp scenes very comfortable, as we do on ours, but at the end of the day, you ultimately are camping. And that is for some folks, and that is not for other folks, and that's totally fine. You know, another advantage of doing a float trip out here is you're able to gain access to areas that are only accessible by floating down. You know, having a plane or even a helicopter for that matter is awesome, as they do give you great access, but there are some areas on some of our rivers where a plane or helicopter is not going to be able to land, and trying to hike in that far would be impossible even for a very young in shape person. So by having the boat that floats you down the river, you're able to experience everything that river has to offer. Some of the rivers that we do float trips on are in steep canyons, and they're beautiful and the fishing's incredible. And the only way that it is accessible is by doing a float trip. And there are many rivers across the state that are like that. You know, for a lot of folks thinking about doing a float trip, doing it DIY, that's great. There are avenues up here for doing that. However, it is tough, and having a local guide who knows the water and knows the ins and outs of logistics of getting stuff from A to B will make your life a whole lot easier. You know, DIY is great for some of our rivers that are pretty straightforward. However, most rivers in Alaska, you know, if you don't know where you're going, you could end up going down a wrong braid or a wrong channel and hit a log jam that is hundreds of yards long, and then you're stuck having to carry all your gear over said log jam, because even with a good chainsaw and knowing how to use one, we've seen some massive log jams on our rivers, and you can avoid those if you know where you're going. Another advantage of doing a guided trip versus DIY is we take care of all the logistics that go behind these wilderness float trips. I mean, for example, our stuff in Western Alaska, you take a jet from Anchorage out to Bethel, and then from Bethel, you take a commuter plane out to one of the smaller strips, and then from that smaller strip, you take a smaller bush plane that actually lands out on the river itself. You know, not having that knowledge or skill set can be a little daunting trying to plan it yourself, or by having someone like me or other established outfitters do that for you. You know what you're getting, when you're getting, and how you're getting there. All you got to do is show up. Speaking of all you got to do is show up, you know, it is just camping, but doing trips like this are a lot of work. Anyone knows who's been out there camping, yes, it's fun, but it is a lot of work, especially when you're out there for 6 to 10 days. That's a lot of food, that's a lot of gear management, that's a lot of cooler management. There's a lot of stuff that goes into it, and having an experienced guide take care of that work for you allows you to be spent fishing, catching fish, as opposed to constantly working camp. Now that is a fun experience and it is rewarding, but let's face it, by the time you hire planes, by the time you buy food, by the time you rent boats, by the time you rent other gear, you're almost up to the cost of a guided trip. So by paying just that little bit more is going to allow you, the guest, to have your time spent fishing and enjoying nature, while us guides do all the hard work. Now don't get me wrong, myself and my guides, we know it's hard work, we love it, we do it all the time, but we also do a bit of fishing on our own in the evening, and it affords us the opportunity to get out on these rivers that for a lot of people are a once-in-a-lifetime trip. For us, we're out there almost every week, so we appreciate you guys for keeping us out there. In addition to having the knowledge of guides getting you out there, we also have great gear. On our company's trips, particularly, our camp scene is amazing. We bring a big portable kitchen tent that can seat 10 to 12 people. We got big tables in there, we got the grills, we got stoves. So if it is raining outside, which it does rain here in Alaska, as anyone who's been up here can attest to, we can be inside a nice, warm, dry tent, have a river view, enjoying a great meal, drinking a cold beer, and be comfortable. Another thing that we do at Fishhounds that's a little bit different is our tents, especially on our deluxe trips, are about 6 feet 4 inches tall. So way easy for a short guy like me to get into, but 6'4" is a pretty tall human. You don't have to, that negates having to kneel down, get in and out of a tiny tent. You have a big tent that you could walk into. They got big vestibules on both sides, so you're able to keep your dry bags outside. You can grab into your gear without having to stuff all that into your tent. Again, trying to do that on yourself, getting all that gear up from the lower 48 is pretty tough. It's a lot of logistics just to get it up here, and then once it's here to get it out there. So another advantage to having a guide is all of our stuff is here, and we actually have bases in Bethel, Kodiak, and South Central. So we have bases all across the state to help facilitate our trips. In addition to that, our guides know what they're doing. They've been doing this for a very long time. They're very good at it. They know all the back channels to go down, and they also know the ones to not go down. In addition to that, some of the things that we do at Fishhound Expeditions that are a little bit different is the quality of our food. We're not trying to compete with a 5-star chef at a lodge, but at the same time, we don't want to be eating MREs in Mountain House. Nothing against Mountain House, but if you eat it for 10 days in a row, it makes it a little tougher on your gut. Some of our dinner examples will be, obviously fresh caught fish. We're in Alaska, gotta have some fresh caught salmon. But we do steaks, on our deluxe trips, we do Alaskan king crab, devil's on horseback, which is bacon wrapped scallops. Most of our breakfasts are hot. Some examples are blueberry pancakes, cinnamon raisin French toast, of course coffee, and real eggs and bacon. Another thing that sets us apart is a lot of people will just do sandwiches day after day after day after day. A good sandwich is great. I understand, we do a couple days of sandwiches, but most of our lunches are hot. We bring a little grill, we grill bacon cheeseburgers, reindeer brats, and most of our lunches, when it's cold and rainy, being hot, make it a whole lot nicer of an experience. In addition to that, one thing that we do here at Fishhound Expeditions is we understand this is vacation. You want to be out fishing, having a good time. Because our gear is modern, updated, and lightweight, we allow clients to not only bring beer, but we actually provide a reasonable amount of beer and wine to go with our great meals while we're out there. In addition to that, all gear on our trips is also provided. A lot of folks, those of us who live up here, have heavier weight rods, but for the folks in the lower 48 who are used to fishing a 3 or 5 weight, you're probably not going to have an 8 or 9 weight. We include all gear at no additional charge. One less thing to worry about. When you're coming up here, you're paying for this trip. You don't want to be nickel and dimed at the last moment for saying, oh, you need to buy flies, oh, you need to buy lead material, oh, you need to buy this. We've taken all that guesswork out of the way. Everything is included in the price of the trip, making it super easier for a guest. In addition to knowing what you're doing and how to do it, safety is of the utmost importance when you're out in the middle of nowhere. All my guides are first aid and CPR certified. I'm a current state of Alaska EMT, and most of my other guides have wilderness first responder as well. In addition to just having that good skill set, we have satellite phones on all of our trips. We'll have the spots, which are very limited on texting range and ability. Having a satellite phone allows you to get a hold of our air providers, state troopers, even the parajumpers if we were to have an emergency like that. We have the ability to call, communicate what's going on. If we needed to get instructions from a higher level of care, say a doctor, we would be able to do that. In addition to that, the most important here to not having an incident is just being safe. And by doing this all the time, we have the skill set of how to keep people safe, because this is our job and we do it a lot and we love it. And some of the things that we do here at Fishhound Expeditions to make our trips more comfortable is the frames on all of our boats have been custom manufactured by myself. Most other companies out there, even some in the lower 48, whether you're 20, 40, or 70, if you're just sitting on a raft tube for 6 to 8 days, your lower back is going to get worked. I built and designed all my frames to either have a chair placed on them so you got good back support. For the person fishing out of the back, we attach a chair, a stadium seat in the back so everyone's got a good back support. In addition to our frames being custom fabricated, allows us to store gear appropriately, giving more space for people to fish. Some other outfits up here in Alaska will have 2 people fishing in the front and all the gear in the back. For us, that's really not acceptable. Having the room to have an angler in the front and an angler in the back sets everyone up better for better fishing opportunity as you're floating down the river. And having great gear here at Fishhound, we have a very knowledgeable staff. As I said many times over, we do this all the time. So if you guys have the time to get up here, we'd appreciate you supporting our local family-owned business, and we would love to get you out on a float of a lifetime. Thank you very much.